First of all, welcome to this webinar. We're grateful you took the time to be able to join us. We hope to be able to really cover on a very high level some of the key administrative policies that you may be familiar with already. Maybe they could be new to you. There certainly hasn't been any significant changes in the last little bit, but hopefully it can be either a refresh or a bit of an orientation to some of the policies that should guide the work in administration at the parish level. The title of this webinar is Administrative Policies and Procedures, I believe, right, Heidi?
Yes.
Yes, it's a real thriller of a title, but it's important nonetheless. So that's why we wanted to keep it as straightforward as we possibly could. My name is Andrew Jardine. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Diocese of London, and I'm joined by Otilia Santon, who is the Director of Accounting for the Diocese of London, and Heidi Monteith, who knows everything, and she is the admin assistant to me and to our department. So I'm grateful that they're both able to join us, and they'll be able to speak not only to some of the history of these policies, but really how we can best put them into practice. This webinar is being recorded, and it can be found with all the other recordings on our website, which is dol.ca/resources and webinar recordings. And if you just search for webinar recordings DOL, you'll be able to track that one down. There is a chat function at the bottom of your screen, as well as a Q&A section. So if you had questions throughout the discussion today, feel free to put them in there. We've found that questions throughout the presentation really help us hone in on the things that you might be genuinely interested and really want to learn about. So we welcome your questions and your comments. So feel free to put those in throughout, and the three of us will keep a close eye on the questions that come in. Heidi, would you mind sharing your screen then now so we can kind of look through the menu of... I'm sorry, before we do that, I'd like to open with a prayer. I have our prayer for our missionary at the church with nice picture of Bishop Fabro and Pope Francis on the front there. So maybe if we could just take a minute to say, I'll lead this prayer, and if you could just take a minute to be mindful that God is with us, that he guides us, even when it comes to administrative policies and procedures. He cares deeply about us, and ask for his blessing on this time together. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Send forth your Spirit, O Lord, and fill the hearts of your people with an ardent desire to follow Jesus, to be his missionary disciples. Fill us with joy and a desire to know your word. May we boldly proclaim the good news to others. For when we help others to know that God loves them, they will know true happiness. Fill us with a deep desire for the Eucharist. May we recognize Jesus in the proclamation of the Scriptures and in the breaking of the bread. For when we are united with Jesus, joy is constantly born anew. Fill us with a true love of neighbor. May we seek opportunities for reconciliation, and with big hearts serve those in need, for in serving them, we know we are serving your Son. With the help of the Holy Spirit, may we commit ourselves to loving you and doing your will. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So Heidi, if you could pull up, and we thought the easiest way to do this was to use the resource that's actually out there so that you can see it and you'll understand how to navigate this going forward. Again, this may not be new to many of you, but we just wanted to put your eyes and attention on where we keep these policies. So would you mind pulling up the site there, Heidi? And this will serve as a little bit of an agenda for us. So if you go on the dol.ca website, and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, policies, procedures, and guidelines. And then letter J is administration. That's the best one. Yes. Administration. So this is the current listing of policies, and some are updated recently. Some we're working on updating. We're trying to get some of these updated as they need to, but it's a work in progress, I would say. And in the meantime, these would be really the guiding principles and guiding policies for anything that you would have related to banking expenses and so on. And we'll walk through there. So I'm not going to read them all out at this point, but we just want to highlight some of the bigger ones. So Ottilia or Heidi, I can hand things over to you to see to start us off with some of the policies under our banking and how that should work and what people should be doing when they're going about working with our banks and our bank accounts and so on.
Okay, well, I'll start with the banking and check signing policy, and I'm just gonna open it up. So as you're probably all aware, we require 2 signatures on all checks. And when it comes to any online banking transactions that occur, have to be approved by at least 1 person. So just scrolling through, who can be a signing officer. So as you can see, there's the list there: your pastor, administrator, associate pastor, deacons, members of finance committees, where you have a cemetery board, could be members of that board, business manager, neighboring pastor, or retired priest. We have neighboring and pastor and retired priest in there because many times it's with not so much with the families of parishes, but when we had the smaller parishes, it was difficult at times to get people to sign checks. So that's why those are in there. And then who can be a diocesan signing officer is listed there as well. Just a little note for any business manager who is actively doing the books, you would not be able to be a check signer. Well, which, yeah, says the bookkeeper or secretaries cannot be because they're doing the books. Okay, then we'll just scroll down through to bank token holders. Who can be a token holder is all listed there as well. And then scrolling through, we have our forms. So anytime you want to add or remove a check signing officer or a bank token holder, we would ask that you complete these forms, just listing your family of parish name and the parishes that are included within that, your bank account numbers, and then list who will be added, and then down at the very bottom here, who would be removed. Then each check signer and bank token holder needs to sign an acknowledgement agreeing to all these terms in order to be able to sign checks or be a bank token holder. We also require a police record check, which is different than the vulnerable one. The police record check we can do through My Back Check. So that's that. I believe a lot of you have probably already seen these forms. So does anyone have any questions?
I don't see any questions at the moment, Heidi. But again, if they come up, feel free to put them in the question and answer box or the chat, and we can address those. And we'll also make sure you have our email addresses. I'm sure many, if not all of you do, but we're happy to answer questions as they come up at any time.
Okay. Back here. And then these are just the next 2 items. They're just the forms that are included with the banking policy. So I guess, Ottilia, use of credit cards.
Yeah, so with the families of parishes and some parishes wanting credit cards, we contacted Bank of Montreal to set up an agreement with them so that we could have the ability to issue our families of parishes 1 credit card with a $5,000 limit. Now, there's a lot of them out there that have that already, so they have someone on staff or the pastor is the one who's the credit card holder, and they fill out an application that it gets sent to me, and then we order them a credit card for the family. Unfortunately, right now, we can only issue one because of the way the agreement is, was created. And if you don't have one for your family and you feel that you need one, you can contact me and we can order one. Again, sort of like the same form that Heidi showed you for bank token holders. It's kind of the same thing. You would fill it out. There's acknowledgement that goes with it as well, that basically says, you know, that you only use it for parish expenses and not for any personal expenses. The statements get automatically emailed to the holder of the credit card. It goes to their email on a monthly basis. And the bank withdraws the balance that is due automatically. So there's no payment that needs to be made to the bank for that. It's automatically paid, and then you can start using it again. If you find that during the month there were extra purchases and you're getting close to your limit, with the online banking, you can go in and make a payment towards the credit card so that you'll have at least that room to make further purchases. I don't think that's happened too much in the families, but it has occurred. So if that's the case, then you know that you can make a payment in advance, and so that you have that room to make other purchases, or maybe you have set up some kind of monthly payment that comes off the credit card automatically, and so that there's no issues with that. In some parishes, you may also have maybe a vendor card for the local hardware store or something like that. Again, it should only be used for parish purchases. One person should really be the keeper of that. It should always be submitted back to the office at the end of the day or whatever, and then the receipts handed in to the bookkeeper, so that when the statement comes to the parish office, she's able to reconcile it, and it's signed off by the pastor or whoever the pastor is put in charge, who is delegated to make the purchases. Parishes should not have a debit card, and I think we've taken care of all that, so we don't have to do that. The other thing is parish petty cash. Some of our parishes have a petty cash system, and so it shouldn't really exceed $1,000. And the idea of that, you would go to whoever is the keeper of the petty cash, secretary or bookkeeper, and they would advance you some money to go buy whatever purchases you need, and then you would return with the receipt for that purchase that had been authorized for you to get. And so that when the petty cash gets low, they can replenish the petty cash, and they have all the receipts with it that would total up to $1,000, and then they can replenish the petty cash, so that it's like a constant revolving thing, so that there's always some money in there for those one-off expenses that may happen in a parish.
We got our first question.
Okay.
Exciting. So from Gay, thank you, Gay. Do you have to fill out the same form for a vendor card that you do for the credit card?
I think the form is different for our credit card. So we can that's on the website, I believe. Or is it?
Yes, so
Remember.
the
But you can contact
acknowledgement,
me
the
for a credit card.
acknowledgement for credit card holders
yeah.
is on the next, included
Next
in the
slide.
policy, I think, and it's also
Yeah.
the next document on the
Oh,
website.
next document, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question from Gianni. Diocesan assessments often exceed $1,000. Should payment be delayed until after the monthly finance committee meeting? Also, is there an exception for pre-authorized payments over $1,000? I don't know if you see that question there, Otilia.
Okay, I'm not sure about the. Okay. So we're okay, I'm not sure about the diocesan assessment piece, because yes, normally on a monthly basis, your assessment would be over $1,000, but that wouldn't be coming out of your credit card or petty cash, so I'm not sure what the question is there.
Mhm.
Um,
An exception for pre-authorized payments over 1,000, so maybe that's related to this. So maybe that's when we could talk about it offline, Johnny, if you let us know, it might be a specific instance we can help you with.
mhm.
Thank you for the questions. Very exciting, very exciting.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Again, you should really try not to use your personal credit card, but if you do happen to use it, make sure that you bring in any receipts, anything that is that you were given by the clerk, and so that you could submit for reimbursement. There's a little expense sheet that you can fill out, or or something like that. Even an Excel sheet. I'm trying to find it there. A little expense form, and then it would be signed off by the pastor approving it, and then you can get reimbursed. But you should, if at all possible, try not to use your own personal credit card.
Okay, any other questions on this one?
Mhm.
And we will get back to you, Jenny. Oh, here we go. My understanding is that $1,000 is the limit before the finance committee must approve the payment in advance. The question is not specifically related to credit card transactions.
Okay.
Oh, so do you need approval for, so would the finance committee need to approve each and every diocesan assessment payment? I guess is the question.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I guess they would kind of prove that in advance. I mean, you wouldn't, I mean, some utility bills can be over $1,000. And as long as the pastor is signing off approving the payment, or the business manager, then you can go ahead and make the payment. You wouldn't need the approval of the finance committee to go ahead and do that. I've seen some of the hydro bills. They're well over $1,000 for a church.
Yeah. So hopefully that's helpful, Gianni. But again, if we're not answering your question fully, you're welcome to ask for follow-up or send us an email. We'd be happy to get back in touch with you.
Okay, so Heidi's just showing you right now is the acknowledgement for the credit card holder. And it just goes over some best practices as an authorized card holder, things that you would do or wouldn't do. And that you agree to these things, and then you sign off, and the pastor signs off, assigning the card to whomever, it might be himself, and that he's following the responsibilities, and that he agrees to follow the guidelines that are set in with regards to holding the credit card. Again, expense reimbursement and payment allowance. So we've kind of gone through this a bit. So the idea is that always you have to have, first of all, the authorization to go out and make the purchase, and that you have the proper receipting. If even if it is, so father goes and he's entertaining maybe the finance committee, or if you want for dinner, he has to give you both slips, because there's the one that itemizes the purchases or the dinners that were purchased, and the other one that he puts through on his debit card or credit card or whatever. You have to make sure that you have both slips. One, because it's required. Two, you get to capture any HST that might be on the bill, which would benefit the parish. They'd get that back. And then you have that's the best practice of doing that. And he would sign off saying that, you know what, had an appreciation dinner with the finance committee, and he would sign off on that. I wouldn't probably have to list all their names, But there should be some kind of statement just saying what the expense was for. And you always, yeah, the idea is that you always want to make sure you have a backup. This protects you as the employee, that you've issued a payment, a receipt to someone, could be the pastor or whoever, and that you have the backup. You have the receipt that says what was purchased, when it was purchased, perhaps what it was purchased for, and that you're releasing the payment to the payee, whoever made the payment for the expense in the first place. So just following best practices. Okay, parish collection and cash controls. I think we've come a long way in this realm. When it comes to the parish collection, they always want at least 3 people and at least 2 unrelated persons. You may have a team where could be the husband and wife and an other person. That is fine as long as there are 2 unrelated persons. And one person should never count alone. And then the team counts on the same time, so that everybody is in the room. And I guess they're each assigned their task. One might be doing the envelopes, one might be collecting the cash, and the other person is doing up the deposit. So as long as you're in the room at the same time, and you want to ensure that there are 2 people with the money at all times. So once it's all collected, one, it may go to the safe on Sunday night for deposit on Monday, or 2, you may have those deposit bags or whatever, and you take it to the bank right after the collection's been counted. And one thing that is that everybody who's in the count team, you may have 3 or 4 members, that you sign off that you were there, first off, and that you acknowledge that, everybody was there together. And so if you all sign off the count sheet, that you were there, and that, everything balances and all that, because the auditors, when they go in and do an audit every 5 years, or pastoral move, whenever that happens, they will ask for this stuff, and they will check to see if the count sheets are there, and if they're signed off on them as well. And then the parish deposit and loan, this is something that is always mentioned, not really a policy, more of a practice for parishes, that if you have excess money in your bank account, and you should probably be putting it in the parish deposit and loan, so that you can put it there for a rainy day, and it collects money for you. Definitely, if you are collecting capital money throughout the year, and you don't want to mix your capital and your operating together, you might want to periodically move that money to the parish deposit and loan. Okay. Okay, well, I can't say too much here, other than I know that when we all became families of parishes, and not every parish was having a mass celebrated during the week, that the bishop allowed for 6 mass intentions, as opposed to the 3 that were that each parish would have been given authority to do prior to becoming a family of parishes. Okay. I think this one deals with offerings for sacrament celebrations. So there is no charge for the sacrament itself, but there is charge maybe from the church for maybe the utilities and that, in having the church open and lights and all that. So A charge may be anywhere from $150 to $250 for that, either the funeral or the wedding that is celebrated in the church.
And those limits, just real quick, those are things that are set by obviously Bishop Fabro and in consultation with our chancellor. So that's those directives get sent out from those offices.
Okay. Okay, so just like basically looks like the same form for token holder or bank signing authority. This is the an agreement for someone, perhaps a bookkeeper, maybe a business manager, who would be responsible for doing up records of employment, ROEs. We can provide them access so that they can go online and do this. To provide the access online to prepare the record of employment. Now, I believe as we move through, as we change from BV payroll to ADP, they may be able to help our parishes in doing these as well. But if someone needs access and they want to do it online, just you can contact myself or Carrie Thornton, and we can provide you access for that. Bingos. Now, each municipality is different, so please check with your municipality as to the do's and don'ts that for your bingo accounts. Generally, they want you to have a separate bank account, which is fine. And the pastor should be one of the signers. You may have multiple people who are responsible for doing the bingos, but the pastor should be one of the signatures that there's a reporting that has to be done with the municipality. And they will allow certain expenses to be paid from the bingo account for the church. So sometimes it depends, but it could be some type of expenditure at the parish. Sometimes they will allow certain utilities to be paid. Each municipality is different. The idea is to keep good records. You want to make sure that you're recording all the revenue that you received from the bingo and then the expenses on the expense line. Some bingos just pay out X number of dollars. You were part of the bingo and they allot so much, in which case all you're going to do is you're going to record the allotment that you received for the bingo. And there's always a license for bingos, and so that probably is done on an annual basis as well.
Heidi, while we have this one up, would you mind just speaking a little bit to the lottery license as well? Because that's come up for a few different parishes and what they should do to go about getting a lottery license. And again, it may vary a little bit depending on your municipality, but generally the process is the same.
Yeah, I was gonna just say for any lottery, you would have to contact your municipality would be the first thing and find out what the requirements are. And they're typically the same. You need a separate bank account for the funds. And you would follow these same guidelines that are here for the bingo accounts. It's relatively the same for the lotteries. So, but yeah, definitely your first step should be contacting your municipality to see what their rules and regulations are.
Sorry, Taylor, go ahead.
No, I was going to say with the lottery licenses, there's also a letter of credit that is paid to the bank to have the lottery.
And what a letter of credit is they actually secure those funds.
Funds, yeah.
And there is a fee to have a letter of credit as well. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a percentage. I think it's around 1.5% of whatever you're holding.
And you should, if you can also let us know, we contact municipality and then let us know. We may need to sign off on a few things as well. And the earlier we know, the better, so that we can make sure we're not going to hold anything up. We can respond relatively quickly, but the sooner in advance we know, the better.
And Andrew, I think there's one more question there.
Oh, okay.
No?
Okay, if you have access to record of employment from another organization, does this access get added to your CRA profile, or is it separate?
I'm not 100%. I think we would have to provide you access to the payroll number in order for you to do the ROE for your parish. So contact, if you need access, give us, contact myself or Carrie, and we can do that for you. Okay, so this is a guideline here on file and retention of management guidelines. I am basically just going to go through the administrative ones. There are certain records that are permanent, and there's a listing here that goes through administrative records, articles of incorporation, minutes to meetings, agendas, all that are permanent records. And so they should be kept in a archived with the parish archives, or set aside somewhere where someone could have access to them. Diocesan policies and directives are permanent, and they should be somewhere in the parish. I'm going to go. So yeah, we talked about board committees, councils, and commissions. All that, correspondence ledgers, agendas, minutes, all that are permanent records. The financial records. So the audit report records, it's listed here that at minimum you keep the last 3 audits. Now, generally internal audits are done every 5 years or when there's a pastoral move. A lot of the internal audits now are being done as a family. So the internal auditor will come out and probably at this point spend maybe a week or 2, depending with the family. And he will do, he or she will prepare the audit. You will prepare an IAQ, which is internal audit questionnaire, and you'll have the finance committee and the pastor sign off on it. And there will be a bunch of things that that we will send you that the auditor will need before he or she comes out to do the audit. Accounts payable, receivable, bank deposits, all that stuff. It's listed. Generally, it's 7 years. And same thing with the offertory envelopes. And that used to be 3 years, but now you have to keep the current plus 6 more. So, and all that is listed there. If there's anything on this list here, whether it's property, personnel, I would suggest, one, that you contact the proper department here at the diocese so that they can tell you whether or not you need to keep it or what it is that you should keep. And that, so if it's personnel, you'd contact Tanya, property, Dino, and that Sacramento registers, I'd contact archives. And financial, you could contact the accounting department and that. So that's just sort of a listing there of how long to keep things. A lot of parishes or families of parishes have started a cycle. So every year with the new records that are kept, they have a box for the 7th year cycle or the 8th year cycle for shredding. Because I'm sure coming together as a family of parishes, space is limited, office space is shrunk. And so you want to maintain sort of a recycling program to maximize your space.
And for this one, if you have any questions at all, just get in touch with us again. And probably Deborah Major would be our best contact. I know recently I was contacted about records related to attendance at Mass during COVID, who was there and who was not there, and she said, "We don't need them. You can just shred those, and there's no need for those to be kept." But good question. I mean, you never know, right? So it's always best to check with us, and we can confirm one way or the other.
Mhm. There's the HST calculation. Generally, the accounting system in the back end will do this for you. It's been set up for that. But if you wanted to know, not all invoices have it spelled out for you. Some invoices are just GST, in which case we only take 50%. But if you wanted to calculate to make sure that sometimes the system is calculated correctly, there's a federal portion and a provincial portion, and then the formulas are there for you. Okay, the
Andrew, there's a
next,
question.
oh, yeah, I don't see it.
Okay, our mass intentions are done in a spreadsheet now. Do we also need to keep a hard copy for mass intentions?
Yes, there should be a record book of all mass intentions. Who was celebrated, when it was celebrated, and who the mass was for. And I'm not 100% sure if you need who requested the mass, but I know there's a mass record book, and that should be kept. Again, I just for all the details, I would confirm with either Deborah or Father Paul, and they can direct you on that. Okay, this is from the CRA website. The last update was 2023, and it's just general information for you with regards to HST. I mean, as a charity, what we need to know is that we will pay HST and we get a rebate, a public service body rebate, so we get to claim that. And as a charity, we don't charge HST for any of our services, so we don't have to worry about that. But there's just general information for you with regards to HST and GST and basic information about charities. So if you're ever bored one day and you wanted to go through all 31 pages, you probably get through the first 6. Okay, so this is our parish assessment and how the parish assessment is calculated. So back in 2000, this was approved by our Council of Priests and the Diocesan Finance Committee. And so the base for our assessment is the regular Sunday collection, basically Christmas, Easter, and the first initial envelope or New Year's Day collection. And that base, 15% of that base is what your assessment is. So for 2024, if we were under normal circumstances, right now our assessment has stayed flat. We would take 2022 numbers, so your offertory, Christmas, Easter, and initial envelope of 2022 to calculate the assessment for 2024, because that would be the only data that we have. We wouldn't have your current data, so that we couldn't do that. So it's always like 2 years behind. For the last, I think this is the 3rd year, where assessment has basically remained flat. And but we're looking at the assessment and it may or may not change going forward. In 2018, it was decided that those parishes with revenues under 25,000 and under, they would only be assessed 5%, not the 15%. So for the smaller communities, their assessment is based on the base is still the same. The percentage is only 5%. And as part of your assessment, we at the diocese contribute to special collections. So that would include Needs of the Canadian Church, Holy Land, Papal Charities, and Catholic Missions in Canada, or Church Extension. So out of the assessment that we received, we take part of that and we send it off to these various charities, these special collections.
And those collections are required to be taken up on an annual basis in each diocese by the Canadian bishops. So
Mhm.
that's why they weren't sort of chosen at random, but we are required to make contributions to those.
Mhm. And the the other collections, the major appeals ones for the seminary, CCODP, the priest pension collection, those will be taken up annually at different times. And then also the World Mission Sunday or Propagation of the Faith in October. I think it's the third Sunday in October. That gets collected and sent to the Mission Commission office of the diocese, which happens to be at 1070 Waterloo currently. Okay, parish audits. I talked a little bit about this earlier. So when there is a change in pastor or we have 5-year cycles, an audit will take place. Being as families of parishes is still fairly new, we're transitioning from 5-year cycles from individual parishes. Obviously, there were none during COVID. I think there was one. So as we're doing them now, we're doing the family, not just a single parish in that family, but the entire family. And so maybe your parish, for some, it could have been done 4 years ago. For some, it hasn't been done for 7 or 8 years. So if a parish, if your family has been selected for audit, every parish within that family will be audited.
And if you know anyone that's interested in being an internal auditor, we would love to get their name. So if you have anyone that's in your parish that's a retired accountant, or they're, just they have experience and background in this, we would love to add to the roster of internal auditors. So please have them get in touch with us, and we can go through the program with them.
Andrew, I think there's another question.
Okay, do we get a report after the audit is complete? So does the parish get a report until after the audit?
Yes, so a report is generally sent to the pastor and the finance chair, if I happen to know who the finance chair is, or the business manager if the family has one. And the idea is that, so I mean, the audit is not meant to scare anybody. It's just to make sure that the parish or the family is following best practices. If you had questions that you were unsure of, the internal auditor is there. You can ask them and they might be able to help you. For a lot of the times they are retired CAs or that have a background in business, so they'd be able to help you with some of those questions that you may have. And then so once they've combined all the information that they received, they put in their observations, and those observations are then sent to the family, to the pastor and finance committee. I will review the entire file, and if I have anything to add, I will also send that to the pastor and finance committee, and they may have recommendations. And so if that is the case, then we'll just ask the pastor and finance committee, based on the recommendations of the internal auditor, what have you done? Are you going to accept the recommendations? Are you not going to accept, and why maybe that you wouldn't accept the recommendations? Sometimes it's a clean audit and there are no recommendations. Everything is good. So it's not meant to be scary. It's just to make sure that best practices are being followed.
Okay, I can speak to this one.
Thank you.
Basically, all this is saying is that any place of worship or land that's used in connection with it you don't get charged property taxes. Rectories get charged at 50%, a priest's residence. Cemeteries are excluded as well. They don't get charged property taxes either. So that's all this document is for. If you are getting charged property tax, on land you do not think you should be, please reach out to us. There is a process that we can submit to the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, and they would do a review and determine whether or not you should be exempt from property taxes. And that's it for that.
Okay, so this is from the Catholic Mutual, and it's basically just best practices for our parishes. So it talks about internal controls. So basically, the person who signs the checks should not be, the person who prepares the checks should not be the person who signs the checks. The person who signs the checks should not be the person doing the monthly reconciliations, and that the monthly bank reconciliation should be signed off by someone, a business manager, the pastor. He may be too busy, but maybe a finance committee member can sign off on the monthly bank reconciliations. Budgets. Every parish should have a budget. It's good to have a budget. It's just a guideline to let you know, are we on track with where we think we're going? I've noticed when I get the parish bank report, parish year-end reports, none of the budget data is in there. It is for some. I know others, they have the budget outside of Business Vision, but it's good to have it into Business Vision. That way, when you print the report, you'll be able to see it, less manual work and having to put it into a spreadsheet, the data into a spreadsheet as well. And it's good to have. So yeah, checking each month or at least quarterly, if you have quarterly finance committee meetings, checking that, where are you compared to your budget? Where's the actual? And it just lets the finance committee know, and the pastor know how things are going. How are the offertory envelopes doing? Are you over budget? Are you under budget? Is there a reason for the change? If there's a change and it's significant, you might have to ask yourself, why is it different? And look into that. Again, we have a two-person signing policy, whether it be on checks or with tokens. One person will implement a payment online, the other person will release it. Stamps should never be used for checks. I can't say that enough. And checks should never be pre-signed. With online banking, I would tend to think that would be less of a concern. But I know that before it was hard getting a hold of people, and the finance chair, who's the second signer, is going away on holiday, so the pre-signed checks really discourage that happening. And then physical control, collection should be stored in the safe. If it's not on the safe, it's hopefully on the way to the bank. Again, 2 people with the deposit at all times. And church money should never be taken home. That just protects you. And hopefully, you don't want anything to go wrong. There's some cash counting and money counting best practices as well, and then an annual review.
Ottilia, a question from Deacon Jim is, well, I'll just read it out. Does the new system let us input a budget, Sage Intacct? Will that let parishes have a budget?
Oh, I would think, you can do it through BV, so absolutely through Sage Intacct, you'll be able to do that.
And I think that will be part of our training and work as well as we're going through the implementation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, one more. Okay, cost sharing between a family. I would have to say, by and large, the largest cost sharing within a family has to be staff, right? You're sharing the pastors amongst the family, lay ministers are shared, or admin staff or custodial staff, all shared within the family. Each parish should be responsible for their, I'll call it, utilities. So, you know, everybody gets, each site, each church gets their own utilities. That should not be shared. That each church should be paying for their own utilities. And capital costs. Each parish, I say parish, each church is currently responsible for their own capital, whether it's just a maintenance or renovation or that type of thing. How you share the costs, what's your base for sharing costs, will depend. Some families have done it differently. What we've suggested here is perhaps your Sunday offertory, Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving appeal. So that would be your base for all the parishes within your family. And based on that, that's how you would split your costs. So to simplify things, you have 4 parishes, equal amounts, it's 25% each. So each parish would be responsible for sharing the staffing costs. So each parish within the family would pay 25%. Maybe you share liturgical items, and those would be shared again at the same rate at 25%. The idea is that you want to be looking at this at least on an annual basis to make sure that is the percentage that we're allocating to each of the parishes within the family still makes sense. Maybe one parish is experiencing a decline in offertory, and so that percentage that you're giving them is no longer fair. They're paying more than their share, and maybe another parish has increased and they're paying less. So you want to look at that at least on an annual basis. You may or may not have to tweak it, but at least you're doing your due diligence and you're reviewing it to make sure that it's still fair and that it's still makes sense. And again, these are guidelines. They're not, you know, cast in stone. If your finance committee has come up with a different way and it's still, you know, equitable amongst the parishes within the family, then that's fine. But again, whatever method you're using, again, I would just review it on an annual basis to make sure that it still makes sense.
Yeah, we could probably do an entire afternoon just on cost sharing. So if you're having any challenges with cost sharing or wanted to discuss this further, we'd be happy to meet with you and your finance committee or have further discussion about it, because for the most part, the formula has worked out fairly well, as Attilia described. There are some that are doing things a little differently as well, but the other advantage, like the big advantage of the family of parishes, is it allows us to share resources in order to leverage the strengths of each parish within the family. So there is some great advantage there, but it's fully appreciate that it can be tricky to work within some of the families, and depending on what the parish's backgrounds are and so on, but we're happy to support that. Another question came in from an anonymous attendee. Just curious about Business Vision. There was some talk about a new program. Also, when is ADP payroll to start? So BV is aging out, so we're not able to continue to use that program, and the new program will be Sage Intacct. And we don't have the implementation schedule for that yet, Attilia, right? But we'll be rolling out.
Yeah, so we're going to have 1 or 2 families test in September. That much I know. But what the rollout is for the other parishes, we haven't determined that yet.
And when it comes to ADP, we're currently completing the filling out the data that ADP needed, and we've got that over to them, and we're now waiting to be handed off to the implementation team. And once we've been handed off to the implementation team, they're going to fully support the rollout at the parish level too, and it will be well supported by ADP. We work with them already at the Diocesan Center, and we've worked closely with them throughout this process, and that will take, they're saying, about 3 to 4 weeks once they actually get us to an implementation team, and we'll make sure that everyone has the support that they need. But ADP is really a phone call away, and they're willing to work hands-on with us as much as we need in the rollout too. So once there is more information, we'll certainly communicate that out. I suspect it will be within the next week or two. We'll get information from our representatives at ADP. I don't know if you had anything to correct or
No,
add there, Otelia.
Just to add that, I mean, they're really good. They will guide you through the first couple of biweekly payrolls and monthly payrolls, so you will not be doing it alone. They'll log into your system and they will guide you through the steps on how to process the payroll. And if you need extra, you need an extra, if you would feel more comfortable if you need it, if they would give you an extra week, they will do that for you.
Yeah.
So they really walk with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've made sure they've given us an extra specialist and so on, just because of the size of the organization. So that's we're confident in as we roll it out. Kelly has asked, maybe I've missed this, but our new bookkeeper was not able to attend today, and this webinar would have been really good for her. Where will this recording be available to her at a later date? So I'm going to type in the answer, because it's a website, and it's not, I just want to make sure you have it, Kelly. And yes, it will be available. We won't be providing the popcorn. You'll have to get your own popcorn for it. But let me pull up the link here. Sorry.
Actually, if you just go to our website and search for Harmony and Service Recordings, it'll come up.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And then I'll just pop in this one as well. This will have, this is the one Claire said, yeah, no problem.
Kelly's
So-
a little upset there'll be no popcorn.
I know. I can drop some off to you, Kelly. So I know that was a high.
General questions, or
Pardon me?
I'm just wondering if anybody has any other questions that they wanted to ask. Okay.
Okay, and again, we're easy to find, 1070 Waterloo, or our email addresses and our phone numbers. Of course, we'd be happy to hear from you and answer any questions that you may have. And if we don't have the answer, we'll certainly find the person that does have the answer. But thank you. I know that was a sort of a high level roller coaster ride through a lot of the policies. We just really wanted to highlight some of the key ones that hopefully you're aware of, but just to make sure that you know where to find them too. So thank you very much for being with us. Again, I know I keep harping this, but anytime there's a question, never hesitate to get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to work with you. So, oh, a quick one. How long are we to keep the annual Mass book?
I think Mass books are permanent, but again, I would check with Deborah in Archives or Father Paul.
Yeah, and I'll put, I think everyone probably knows how to get a hold of Deborah, but let me just put her email in the answer here, just so that Deb is currently, she's not in the office this week, but she's pretty easily accessible. So I'll put Deb's email just in case you don't have it, but Mary, Deb can answer that in about 2 seconds, I'm sure. All right, we're at 2:30 bang on. So thank you all for coming and joining us. Just want to make sure. Okay, 2 years.
2 years.
Kelly, 2 years, 2 years. Looks like 2 years. So thank you. It's a group effort here. Thank you for joining us. Wish you the very best. And of course, hopefully we can connect again sometime soon. This webinar will be put up online for the recording, and many blessings and prayers coming your way as you carry out your own ministry in the parishes. Thank you for all you do, and God bless you all in your work. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.